My name is Christopher May. It is May 17, 2021. I'd like to talk to you about the brain. This is my dissected sheep brain. So basically, an outer layer that's not pictured here is the meninges. The meninges they come in three separate layers. So there's the dura mater, the arachnoid mater, and the pia mater. What that does is they basically cover the surface of the brain. They are surrounded and have cerebral spinal fluid flow through them. What that does is it allows for them to receive oxygen, receive nutrients, and also expel waste and have shock absorption when interacting with the skull around it. If we look at um, both hemispheres of the brain, it's separated by the longitudinal fissure. Um, and then if we're looking at the brain itself, it's covered in gray matter. Gray matter consists of unmyelinated axons for the most part, and then the white matter in the middle, that is myelinated axons. So the difference between white matter and gray matter in terms of myelation is myelin sheaths cover around the axons, and that allows for there to be more insulation, and action potentials can get to areas faster when they're myelinated. As opposed to gray matter, and the action potentials that are carrying information do not have as much of a do not act as quickly. So then, looking at the surface of the brain, there's the sulci, which are the grooves of the brain, and then the gyri, which are the ridges of the brain. So basically, this allows for the cerebral cortex, the surface covering the brain, that allows for it to have more surface area, thus more axons for action potentials. So then there's several different parts of the cerebral cortex. So here's the frontal lobe. Towards the front, there's the parietal lobe that's separated by the central sulcus. Then underneath here, there's the temporal lobe, which is separated by the lateral sulcus, and then back here, there's the occipital lobe. So the frontal lobe is where a lot of our conscious thought happens, where we have a lot of planning and memories and different like perceptions of we can also with the prefrontal cortex, that's where a lot of the thoughts happen. In the primary motor cortex, that's where conscious movement happens, and then in the parietal lobe, the somatosensory cortex, that's where we are able to perceive um, uh, taste, pressure, temperature, various parts of touch. Um, so yeah, that's where we perceive a lot of the different sensations. Occipital lobe, posterior to the brain, that's where we receive a lot of visual stimuli, and then the temporal lobe here, that's where we receive a lot of um, the auditory and olfactory or smell stimuli. So here's the callosum. So basically, they're transverse white matter fibers that connect the the left hemisphere to the right hemisphere. Then we go down to the thalamus. The thalamus is a big piece of white matter that allows for there to be like a lot of sensory information from cranial nerves or from the spinal cord that goes all through the thalamus, and it distributes it evenly throughout the brain, or wherever it needs to go. Then below that is the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is in charge of a lot of the chemical interactions of our brain. So because it has a pituitary gland, it can activate sympathetic or parasympathetic um, nervous activities. It can promote a lot of drives for hunger, for thirst. A lot of actions, a lot of chemical actions throughout our body are in the hypothalamus. Then you go down to the midbrain. So the midbrain is where a lot of our reflexes occur in the reticular formation. So as we go from the cortex to the um, uh, uh, inferior, like the actions are becoming less and less conscious. And then we go to the pons. The pons is where our heartbeat and our breath, like rhythmically, where that's generated. And then down here towards the medulla oblongata, that's where our brainstem is, and where a lot of the where all of the spinal ascending fibers and descending fibers go through. So that's the primary action. That's the primary location for movement. Um, yeah, and then back here's the cerebellum, where a lot of movement is fine tuned and regulated. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed.